The Child of Danger, Section 1. Egypt was a land drowning in fear, though fear had not always ruled it. Once it had been glorious, proud, and secure. But now, under a new Pharaoh, the air itself felt heavy. A dark shadow hung over every Hebrew house, as if the sky had forgotten how to shine. The Pharaoh of this time was not wise like the kings before him. He was a man with a heart hardened by insecurity. Every morning he would stand on his balcony, overlooking the endless labor of the Hebrew slaves. Men and women whose strength amazed yet frightened him. The more he saw them grow in number, the more his fear turned into cruelty. "These Hebrews multiply like stars," he muttered one day, his voice trembling with hidden anxiety. "If we do not stop them, they may one day rise against Egypt." Fear makes even kings blind. And soon Pharaoh's fear turned into a monstrous decision, a decree that froze the blood of every Hebrew parent. He summoned his royal guards, and his booming voice echoed across the palace hall. "Every newborn Hebrew boy shall be thrown into the Nile River." The guards bowed without question, and with that one order, thousands of innocent cries were silenced before they could begin. Hebrew families trembled. Mothers hid inside dark corners of their clay houses. Fathers could not sleep at night, listening for the stomping feet of Egyptian soldiers marching street after street. Every cry of a newborn was a blessing and a threat. In one such small clay house lived a woman named Jochebed. Her heart was tender, her faith strong, yet even her hands shook whenever she heard soldiers shouting outside. One cold night, as the stars hid behind clouds, Jochebed felt the first signs of labor. Her husband Amram helped her lie down on a woven mat. The room was silent except for her soft, painful breaths. Miriam, her young daughter, held her hand tight. "Mother, will the soldiers hear?" Her voice trembled. Jochebed's eyes filled with tears. Fear tried to swallow her courage, but before she could answer, a soft cry filled the room. A baby boy, small, fragile, innocent, entered a world that wanted him dead. And in that moment, even the walls of the small house felt the presence of God. Jochebed looked into the baby's eyes, and something inside her lit up like a divine flame. "He is special," she whispered. "God has a purpose for him." She wrapped him quickly, trying to quiet his cries. Any sound could bring soldiers rushing in. Days passed, nights passed, but the danger grew closer. Whenever Moses cried, Jochebed would press him tightly to her chest, hoping her heartbeat would calm him. Amram tried sealing cracks in the walls so soldiers couldn't hear the faint sound of a baby. Miriam stayed awake at nights, watching through a small window for the shadows of Egyptian soldiers. Fear lived in their home, but so did faith. The Hebrews were a people of hope, a hope rooted deep in the promises of their God, a mother's fight against fear. Days began to blur into nights inside Jochebed's small home. Every moment was a battle against fear, a battle against time, and a battle against the Pharaoh's decree that hunted her newborn son. Whenever Moses let out even the softest cry, Jochebed would rush to him, pressing her hand gently over his tiny mouth so the sound wouldn't escape into the street. Her heart would pound so loudly that she feared the soldiers would hear the beat of her chest before they heard her baby. Their home, once filled with laughter and warmth, had now become a place of whispered prayers, silent tears, and constant vigilance. Miriam, though young, was wise beyond her years. She would sit beside her baby brother and rock him slowly, singing soft Hebrew lullabies in barely audible tones. "Shh, little one, the Lord is watching over you." Sometimes Moses smiled in his sleep, and that small smile kept hope alive in a house drowning in fear. But fear always returned. One afternoon, loud shouting echoed down the street. Egyptian soldiers were coming. Again. Amram blew out the oil lamp instantly. Miriam froze. Jochebed clutched Moses so tightly as if she could press him into her own heart. Heavy footsteps stomped past the walls. The shadows of spears slashed across their window. A soldier banged on the neighbor's door. A mother's scream followed. A baby cried. Then the sound suddenly stopped. Jochebed's tears fell onto Moses' forehead. Her body shook as she held him close. God, please don't let them hear my son. Minutes felt like hours. Finally, the footsteps faded. The soldiers had moved on, but Jochebed knew the truth. They were getting closer every day. That night, she and Amram sat in darkness. We cannot keep him hidden much longer, Amram said with a broken voice. Jochebed closed her eyes. Her soul felt torn apart. What could a mother do when the world outside was waiting to kill her child? The river that tested a mother's heart. The morning came slowly, as if even the sun understood the pain that awaited the little clay house. Jochebed barely slept. Her eyes were swollen from crying, her heart heavy with a decision no mother should ever be forced to make. But destiny doesn't wait, and neither did Pharaoh's soldiers. Before dawn, Jochebed wrapped Moses carefully in soft white cloth. She held him close, so close that she wished her heartbeat could somehow keep him safe. Amram stood silently in the corner. He was a strong man, but today he looked weak, weaker than ever before. He stepped forward, placed his hand gently on Moses' tiny head and whispered, "May the God of our fathers protect you, my son." His voice cracked, and he turned away to hide his tears. Miriam clutched her mother's dress, her small voice trembling. Is this goodbye?" Jochebed knelt down, held Miriam's face in her hands and kissed her forehead. "No, my child, where God goes, goodbye becomes hope." She lifted the small basket that she had poured her heart into through the long, painful night. It was ready, but her heart was not. Yet faith sometimes demands that we walk even when our feet shake. With every step toward the Nile River, Jochebed's heart pounded harder. Her legs felt weak, but she kept moving. Miriam followed closely, her eyes fixed on the basket as though staring hard enough could keep her brother safe. The sun rose gently, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. The river shimmered, beautiful yet dangerous. Its waters could drown a child. Its currents could swallow a dream. But today it would carry a miracle. Jochebed reached the riverbank. The reeds swayed silently, as if bowing to a mother's courage. She placed the basket on the ground, her hands trembling as she removed the cloth to see her baby's face one more time. Moses gazed up at her, innocent and unaware of the world's cruelty. He reached out his tiny hand and touched his mother's chin. Jochebed broke. She leaned forward and whispered, "My son, I cannot protect you with my hands, but I can protect you with my faith." Her tears fell onto his blanket. She kissed his forehead. Then with a slow, trembling breath, she lowered the basket into the water. The river accepted it gently, as if cradling the child. The basket rocked softly, floating forward, guided by the current and by something far greater. Miriam gasped, her eyes widened with fear. "Mother, the water's moving too fast." Jochebed grabbed Miriam's hand and pulled her close. "Do not be afraid. God is with your brother." Even though her voice was steady, her heart felt like breaking. The basket drifted farther, its path uncertain, sometimes moving gently, sometimes spinning with the water. Every second felt like an eternity. Miriam wiped her tears and slipped into the tall reeds quietly. "I will watch him," she whispered. "I will not leave him alone." Jochebed nodded silently. She couldn't bear to watch any longer. She turned away, her body shaking with sobs as she walked back home. But even through the tears clouding her vision, she whispered, "Lord, into your hands." Meanwhile, Miriam moved carefully through the reeds along the water's edge. She kept her eyes fixed on the basket, determined, brave, and filled with a courage that belied her small age. Sometimes the basket got stuck between reeds. Sometimes it drifted into deeper water. Miriam's heart would skip a beat each time, but she never stopped watching, never stopped hoping, never stopped believing. At that very moment, farther down the river, God was setting the stage for the miracle that would change history. The basket drifted further along the Nile, rocking gently like a cradle in the hands of God. The sunlight danced on the water, casting patterns of gold around the small weaving of reeds that held the future of Israel. Miriam continued following from the reeds, silent as a shadow, watching every movement, every turn of the basket. Her heart raced each time it drifted too close to a rock, or a deeper current, or a patch of reeds that threatened to trap it. And yet, each time the basket found its way again. It was almost as though the water moved aside to protect the child. Almost as though the river knew who floated upon it. Meanwhile, life along the Nile continued as usual. Women washed clothes on the banks. Fishermen threw their nets. Children played near the water. Not one of them knew that they were witnessing a moment that heaven itself was watching. A little farther down the river, a group of royal maidservants walked toward the water. Not one of them knew that they were witnessing a moment that heaven itself was watching. A little farther down the river, a group of royal maidservants walked toward the water. Their steps were graceful, their gold bracelets catching the sunlight as they whispered softly among themselves. A little farther down the river, a group of royal maidservants walked toward the water. Their steps were graceful, their gold bracelets catching the sunlight as they whispered softly among themselves. Behind them walked a woman dressed in white linen and gold, elegant, regal, and serene. She was Pharaoh's daughter, a woman of compassion in a kingdom of cruelty, a woman whose heart, unlike her father's, still held softness. She approached the river to bathe and to enjoy the coolness of the morning. But before she stepped into the water, something unusual caught her eye, a small basket drifting among the reeds. She frowned slightly. "What is this?" A maidservant rushed forward and waded into the shallow water. She reached the basket, lifted it carefully, and brought it to the princess. The princess bent down and slowly pulled back the cloth inside the basket. And then the baby cried, a soft, desperate, innocent cry that pierced straight through her heart. Her eyes widened, her breath caught, her face softened instantly. She touched the baby's cheek gently with the back of her finger. "This child," she whispered, "is a Hebrew." The maids exchanged worried looks. They all knew her father's decree. This child was supposed to die. But the princess, a woman raised inside the cold walls of the palace, felt warmth in her heart that she had never known before. A mother's instinct awakened inside her. She lifted the child into her arms and held him close. And in that moment, the child stopped crying. A strange peace settled over them, as if heaven itself had exhaled a sigh of relief. From behind the reeds, Miriam watched with pounding heart. She knew this was her moment, a moment God had placed before her. She stepped out timidly, her feet trembling, her voice barely above a whisper. "Shall I go and find a Hebrew woman to nurse the child for you?" The princess turned, surprised, but her expression remained gentle. "Yes," she said softly. "Go, child. Bring me someone who can care for him." Miriam didn't need to be told twice. She ran as fast as she could, her small feet kicking up sand, her heart pounding with hope and disbelief. She reached her home breathless. "Mother, mother," she cried, "come quickly. You must come." Jochebed rose to her feet, her heart filling with both fear and longing. "Is he safe?" Miriam nodded so quickly that tears flew from her eyes. "Yes, the princess found him, and she wants a Hebrew woman to nurse him." Jochebed's knees nearly gave way. She pressed a hand to her mouth as tears of shock and joy spilled down her cheeks. Could this be real? Could the same river that threatened to take her child now return him to her arms? They ran, a mother and daughter, hearts pounding, souls trembling with hope. When they reached the river, the princess was waiting, holding Moses close. Jochebed approached slowly, her eyes on her child and her heart in her throat. The princess looked at her with warmth in her eyes. "Take this child," she said, "and nurse him for me. When he grows, he will return to me." Jochebed nodded, unable to speak through her tears. She reached out, her hands shaking. And the princess placed Moses back into the arms of the mother who had let him go. Jochebed held him close, closer than ever before. Her tears fell on his tiny forehead, but this time they were tears of joy. Miriam smiled through her tears. Even the maidservants smiled softly, and the river that once held a mother's fear now carried God's miracle. Jochebed whispered, "My son, you were never in danger. You were always in God's hands,